A little over a year ago, right as Super Bowl ads were spreading the gospel of a new era of finance akin to the invention of the wheel, we started to see hints, Scott. Hints that a group of nerds in a penthouse in the Bahamas had allegedly set off a financial landmine of their own design that would vaporize billions of dollars, real and imagined, of other people's money. And do you know what today is?
The reckoning?
Today is the day we can stop saying allegedly.
That is true. One of the joys of being any kind of media is that you have to use the word allegedly a lot.
You say it a lot, but not today. Not us. Last Thursday, Sam Bankman-Fried, co-founder of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX, was found guilty on a bunch of charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. We got to get into it. It's a big day.
It is a big day. We're going to do that and a few other stories. Some interesting game cheat story that came to us from our Discord. So thank you, Boyd, for that one. I have to cover it. Fascinating topic.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. An unstoppable force and an immovable object in the world of video game cheating. It's a great story. And then I want to talk about a little story that came out of Europe's spyware regulation. Amnesty International report into something called the Predator Files. It is a pretty wild story. FTX, crypto, Europe spyware, Roblox. Let's get into all of it on this chatty episode of Hacked. Scribbly boop bop boom. It's drum and bass now. We're doing drum and bass for the theme music. It's drum and bass. It's fast. It's 160 beats per minute. Strap in.
Strap in. Get ready. Come with us.
Come with
all
us on this journey.
All the time. Yeah.
How you doing, man?
We recorded 360 BPM and then slow it down.
This is true. You got that woozy. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a second since we did one of these. We had our great conversation with Jack Resider from Darknet Diaries. Check it out if you missed it. And then I went on vacation.
You did.
I did go on vacation. And now
oddly enough, I'm currently on vacation. I am
this
out
is
on
how
the
you
coast.
spend your
I'm very
vacation.
close to you. I've been living your Pacific Northwest rain lifestyle, and I gotta say, I don't love it. I don't love it. Not for me.
It's rainy, huh?
It's very, very wet and cold, and I don't dig it. Yeah,
it's a lot. You want to get the sun lamp. You want to get that vitamin D. We've talked about this before, but you got to take steps. You don't have to deal with snow, but you do have to deal with seasonal depression on a scale I've never really experienced before. So, it kind of all comes out in the wash.
The thing I've been noticing is like where you are in Vancouver, Arc'teryx, Gore-Tex jackets. See, I'm even further west, and it's like you can tell the tourists because we're all in Arc'teryx and Gore-Tex jackets, and the locals are literally wearing deep sea fishing like outfits, full rubber rain suits. Huge bib pants, massive rain boots. It's like they pulled no stops out. Only the tourists are the ones who were like, oh, Gore-Tex will keep me dry. And they're like, no
idea.
Yeah.
You need those giant fishing boots that go up to your shins. I know what you're talking about. That makes a lot of sense. Waders. You need waders, basically.
Yes. You need Paddington Bear. You need the whole outfit. Hat, coat.
The little Bucky hat.
So
that's a good look. That's a very West Coast look. That's a very far side of the island look. I'm glad to have you out here, even if only for a little while.
Oh, thanks, buddy. We should thank our patrons, Jordan. What about you?
I think we should probably thank our patrons.
Lovely patrons. And we should probably talk about the merch store, which has been going great. Store.hackpodcast.com.
I love hats.
Enjoy your hats.
I love a mug.
We've been getting
people have been buying it. People have been buying Hacked merch.
Literally,
it's so sick.
We get a bunch of orders every day, which is amazing. Love to see it.
Amazing.
Hope you guys love the merch.
Merch is like one of those things that I know we could have just slapped the logo on something, but we wanted to there's some fun designs in there. We wanted to work with our designer to make something cool. And that's part of why it took such a dang long time. So seeing that people were still down, still excited for merch means a lot. Almost as much equal to as much as it means when you support us on Patreon. Hackedpodcast.com redirects to our Patreon. Great way to support the show.
Uh-huh.
And we got some new patrons
We
since
do.
we've last done a shout out to thank.
I would like to thank Jacob, Casper Monson.
Jacob.
I
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
it means a lot. You've left it just thank you, P.
The letter P,
just the letter lowercase
letter P. You are.
There's like a swagger of one letter lowercase. It's like Q on Star Trek, but not like no lowercase. I'm that humble.
I'm P.
Thank you so much, P. Means the world to us.
Broderick Duncan, thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Broderick.
Yes. Mika Sanchez, thank you so much.
Micah, I think. Is that a Micah? I think it's a Micah.
My apologies, Micah.
It's okay. Normally it's me that's messing up the name, so I'm glad this time it might be you.
You got me. We support one another during these trying times. Micah, thank you so much.
I think these next two were pretty good on. Quincy Z, love you, Z. And Diego Fierro. I think it's hard to mess up Quincy and Diego.
Diego Fierro, congratulations. That's a solid name.
That's a name.
I'm a big appreciator of a name with flow, and Diego Fierro.
And Quincy. One of my favorite fruits is
Quincy
the quince.
Z, yeah.
I love a quince. So
big Quincy Jones guy. You know how I feel about Thriller. Thank you all so much. If you want to support the show, kick it on over to Patreon, hackedpodcast.com to find our Patreon.
And if we missed you,
or buy a bucket hat,
or buy a bucket or a visor,
or buy a bucket hat or a visor, it's all good.
If we did miss you as a patron, we apologize. Just fire us a note,
yes.
DM us on X, or just fire us a note on the Discord. But yeah, if we did miss anybody, we greatly apologize. But I think, aside from that, we should maybe plug Hotline Hacked.
Ooh, yes. So we're sitting on some killer content. We got to decide when we want to drop the first one. But we've gotten enough that we're going to at least do a Hotline Hacked, maybe a couple. And if you want to get your strange tale of technology, it can be a hack you were a part of. It can be a funny little computer whoopsie doodle that you did. If you just got a funny, interesting story about technology that you want to share with us, hotlinehacked.com. You can see a ChatGPT generated website that is in no way, shape, or form optimized for mobile. I'm very proud of it. It took me minutes to make, and I think I have a future in web dev, was all I'm saying.
Yeah, hotlinehack.com. Check it out. And let's get on with the show. But yeah, it seems like it's been a while. Like, we recorded that episode with Jack prior to Halloween. I think that was the last episode that we recorded. So it feels like it's been a hot minute since we've done one of these. So it's nice to be back behind the mic.
Yeah. A lot of stuff has happened. We got to talk about the FTX trial. That one's pretty crazy. There's some stories that have started but haven't quite gotten to a point to talk about it. In the States, President Joe Biden signed an executive order on October 30th to establish the first substantial U.S. regulation on AI. We're not really talking about that today because it hasn't really fully happened yet. But I did want to bring up the fact that the White House revealed that a pretty big influence on this most recent push was the bad guy in the new Mission Impossible movie. I'm not sure if you had followed this story or have seen the new Tom Cruise motion picture Mission Impossible.
I haven't, so please enlighten me with how this is more of a joke than it already sounds.
It's pretty much all right on the surface. In that movie, the bad guy, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen the new Mission Impossible, the villain is a sentient AI. And apparently, amongst other things, that movie was a big part of why there is now a push for substantial U.S. regulation governing artificial intelligence. And that's really fun to me because that's the first part of a two-part a movie. It's the first of two, and the second one hasn't come out yet, which makes me feel like there's probably an immense amount of pressure on Tom Cruise to get that right, given that it seems to be informing domestic policy.
Well, it's funny that they've completely overlooked the warning signs that were given to us in 1984 in Terminator.
Yeah,
and they're only paying attention now to Mission Impossible.
it's 'cause it's got that
You know,
cruise star power. You know what I mean? They saw Top
I get.
Gun. Yeah,
Hey,
he's
Arnie was like a senator, wasn't he? He was a
that's true.
senator.
Yeah, he
Like
was California. Yes, he was.
exactly. See, he knew.
Our great AI fighting movie stars are really changing the game. We didn't need to bring that up, but I just thought it was fun. That was a good time.
It and
Um,
that is a good one.
yeah, so we're gonna follow that story. I think a little bit more seriously as it starts to develop. But I feel like we're entering into that first era of regulations and guidelines governing AI. It's going to be a whole big mess. We're going to talk about it as it unfolds.
A good contrast to the
Mm.
policy and the regulations that they're putting on AI, and they're doing it quite quickly when you compare that to something like crypto, which a lot of this episode will be talking
Speaking
about.
of, yeah,
Speaking of the, we're decades in at this point, or at least, and still no regulation. Surprising how that works. Maybe Tom Cruise needs to make a crypto movie.
that's cursed energy you just put out into the world.
Oh, well,
Can't run from that, Tom. Yeah, I'm sure it's bound to happen. And I see you have a story in here that suggests. I think far side of the FTX trial, which we're going to get to, we're going to start seeing more of it. The
yeah.
increased financialization of crypto by the financial industry that it was trying to get away from seems to be maybe the new act we're going into. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Get over there.
The what else to chat about quick? The humane AI pin. Have you seen this thing?
Yeah. I have seen this thing. I followed it. I watched the very, very, very dry announcement video. The like anti-salesmanship launch video is pretty great. A company called Humane, helmed by
It's humane,
ex-Apple
right?
employees. Yeah, Humane, helmed by ex-Apple employees Imran Chowdhury and Bethany Bongiorno, which had been sort of operating a little bit in stealth mode with this product that everyone knew the basic idea behind it. It was my phrase, not theirs, a screenless smartphone, empowered by, by artificial intelligence. Everyone knew they'd been working on it. Everyone knew that's kind of where it was going. It finally got announced last week. We get the big kickoff video, and the hot takes, they are a coming. What do you think of this thing?
Honestly,
Yeah, you here for it?
I think it's. Yeah, I think it's.
You already have one. You bought it in the midnight black.
Yeah, I've already bought it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm talking to it right now. It's actually
totally.
recording my podcast for me. I think it's a neat concept. I just don't know if it's going to be the smartphone killer. Like it seems
Yeah,
like a tenth of the product or 100th of the product of a smartphone.
sure.
So it's like, obviously we have Siri, and one of these days Siri will be, GPT enabled and will be much more functional.
Yes,
And it seems like what they've done is create essentially a pin on pseudo Siri. Like, I don't know. I see this being a much worse implementation than a smart glasses or
Sure.
a smartphone or I don't know. It just feels half cooked. And I just don't know how it's going to compete with some of the larger, more sophisticated solutions.
Yes. So for anyone that hasn't seen this product, it's a pin with, I think they call it a laser ink. It's a small projector on it, essentially. The pin sits on your lapel. It listens to you. You talk to it primarily through voice commands. When you do need to see something, it has this little projector that you put your hand in front of. That's kind of the whole product here. And I guess if I was trying to think of the most generous thing I could say about it, because I like a big swing. I think this is if you are a person that struggles with chronic phone addiction and you need to have a small portable computer with you, this is a really interesting way of taking the addicting part, the screen, out of a phone and trying to preserve as much of the utility as humanly possible. They're using, so that's okay. I can see that being useful for that person. In order to empower that, the big idea here is, what if we used GPT style AI, natural voice computing, as like a layer of mediation between you and the device? Instead of having to take the device out and actually use it, you can talk to it using GPT, literally Chat GPT as a service.
Uh-huh.
That's a really, really cool idea. There's a thing in like tech product design about don't build features, build products.
Uh-huh.
And that to me, unfortunately, feels like a feature that in a generation of Android or two, they'll have just woven in all of the Bard style natural like language computing into the phone at that level to the point that you could just talk to it like it's a humane pin
Totally.
and have it work the same way. The issue for me is that like when I do need that really high information bandwidth thing that only a screen can offer, like if I need a map with 5 locations pegged on the map that I can see all at once, when I need to be able to see 7 products with their prices and I want to be able to see them all at the same time, that really high information bandwidth thing, I just want the thing to have a screen on it.
Totally. Like, could you?
And so I'm not sure how this improves on that.
Imagine booking an Airbnb with this thing.
Hell.
Hell.
Actual hell.
Yeah.
Like
you're like, hey, I need an Airbnb in Vancouver in the West End.
Yeah.
And it'd be like,
yeah.
Found these 76 listings.
Yeah.
I have
Let me describe them to you.
Let me describe them to you. What one of the like example cases they give is like, you can talk to it and have it do things like go through my contacts list and find this person's phone number, or go through my mailbox and find this piece of data. But it's like, what if it doesn't do it well? Like, what if it gives you your confirmation code for your flight from 3 years ago rather than your confirmation code from the flight from this week? And it's like, and there's no, all of a sudden you're like having an argument with this 4-inch piece of glass that's pinned to your coat. I don't know.
100%. Well, and further to that point, why isn't that something that I could say into my AirPod or my Google Bud?
Totally.
Like that way of interacting with the computer is a forward-looking, very humane, gets you off your phone feature. It's not, I haven't seen proof that this needs to be its own product. It's a great feature at an OS level for phones. I think that question of like, well, what is the unique use case that this empowers? I was reminded anytime people talk about an iPhone killer, my brain goes back to the famous, like the iPhone launch event where he does the thing where he says it's an iPod, it's a phone, it's a revolutionary internet communicator. And he keeps saying those 3 things and you realize he's talking about one product, the iPhone. Boom, we have mobile computing. That's how that event starts with these 3 use cases that are now in one device. This video starts with the colors that it's available in. Like they're not, it's like you don't know what that killer app is, that use case, that reason I have to have this as opposed to a phone. Unless I just can't deal with the responsibility of having a screen in my pocket, which is real. Like I'm
real.
not belittling that. For some people, I think this has real utility of just, you can't handle owning a phone. Try this out. Fair enough.
And it like,
I wonder why it's not on your wrist. That seems maybe a little more useful, but that's a minor detail.
It does have, yeah, exactly. It does have a camera. Like it does have other little functions, but yeah, to me, I don't know. Like it feels like when I think of Meta Ray-Bans, the ultimate output of the Meta Ray-Bans is like essentially this built into a set of glasses, but also with the ability to show you basic pieces of information, like have a basic HUD, or like, the ability to not project into your hand in single color, some form of functionality. It's like, I don't know. I agree with you on the function versus product thing. This does feel like when Siri and like Google AI get fully integrated, that you'll be able to list "Hey Siri" on your AirPods, and then boom, I don't know, my iPhone just lit up.
A lot of people's iPhones just lit up. If I don't believe that.
But I don't know. I just can't see it. I don't know.
Totally.
Maybe I'm missing some extensible nature. Like the thing that made the iPhone so successful was the App Store, right? The ability to take it and use it as a platform. And I'm seeing lots of those platformish devices. Those are the ones that really change the world. I just don't know how you would use this as a platform. I suppose you could ingrain new UIs and GPTs AIs into it, but Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting,
It's
but if I
interesting.
had to bet on it, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, I imagine that. I think you nailed it. Like, I think that GPT as an intermediary layer between you and your computer is a cool idea that will slowly be implemented in devices that will be probably much more successful.
Uh-huh.
And as a form factor goes, I would much rather have a pair of glasses I can pop on because the amount of like fidelity and information that you're getting out of that laser ink projector feels kind of about as much information as we could probably get into a heads up display on a transparent pair of glasses in the next 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And I'd much rather just see it in the corner of my eye. But
Totally.
we'll have to see. You brought up the App Store, and that's maybe worth one last thing we touch on before we
For sure.
dive into some other stories, which is ChatGPT launched GPTs, their version of essentially an app store. So you can now create these little custom versions of ChatGPT that take prompts, instructions, information you've given it, and save it as its own little agent you can come back to. Pretty cool.
I you know what? I gotta take a victory lap on this one. I feel like I called
Oh
this.
yeah,
I feel like I called this.
yeah. No, you kind of did.
Domain specific GPTs. You just sense it's
Yeah,
gonna come. Like soon there'll be a
yeah,
HR policy GPT that you buy a subscription to that will write all your HR policies and like basic legal contract review stuff like that. Or I
yeah.
just foresee. I You can see this coming a mile away, and I think it's actually brilliant, honestly. Like to train a domain specific AI to really know the intricacies of a specific
Hmm.
piece of language. This makes sense.
Yeah. The second this got rolled out publicly, so it's only available for folks that have, I think, GPT Plus or Pro or whatever they call
Uh-huh.
it. I have a little folder that has emerged over the last while of saved prompts, basically. It's very useful to be able to like write out a paragraph, slowly finesse it over time, and then just keep coming back to it. Say you want to like make notes about an article or process a large piece of text down into a specific format.
Uh-huh.
Day one, just like immediately took all those prompts one by one, created GPTs based on each one of them, saved them as little agents, and now they're just there. And it's a small thing, but it really does radically change that like user experience of working with these chatbots because now I suddenly have these little programs, these little apps I can use.
Sure, that have retained the context of the discussions you've had with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it refined. I noticed it when you give it your prompts, it's not just doing a copy paste. It actually refines the prompt. It asks you a series of questions that it then uses to refine your original prompt to more accurately give it instructions to itself,
Smart.
for lack of a better way of putting it. Like it is refining itself to make sure that you're getting the result it understands you want, not just doing the letter of the initial prompt, which is I think different than when you just feed it the prompt.
Well, even
So far, pretty good.
yeah, even like I think like 4 or 5 months ago, you started seeing a lot of like TikTok videos and things coming out with people who were trying to tell you the best way to use ChatGPT, and a lot of
Sure.
them was starting to interact with it, being like, "Ask me the questions that you need to know to write me the best cover letter for this job application."
Yeah, right.
And then it
I
asks
like
you a
that
prompt
format.
of 10 questions, and then you answer those, and then bang, it like knocks you out this perfect cover letter. And it's like, okay, you could see where we were going for sure.
Yeah. I'd been off social media just because I was on vacation, but when I came back to it, it was right around when those were being announced. And the number of people who at some point had been like all about drop shipping, and then we're all about creating internet courses, and then we're all about blah, 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 who had like moved on to this is the new app store. It doesn't require any code, and here's how we're going to make all the money in the world. And then I went and made one. I was like, nah, dog, this is too easy. The barrier of entry for this is way too low for this to be the new grift. There's zero friction of making this thing. Like it's just too easy to make a GPT for you to be able to do any kind of real hustle. Aside from like selling courses, teaching people how to make GPTs for money or something, like there's no actual utility here, I think.
Yeah.
And as a money making grift, I think it's just a good, useful thing to wire GPT into itself and let you save the results. But I don't think it's going to be. It might be a bit of a gold rush, but I don't know.
I think you'll see some really, just like everything, right? Like there's, for every YouTube channel that's successful, there's a 10 million of them that
Sure.
aren't. And I think you'll see that here. You'll see a lot of garbage get created quickly, probably around like marketing stuff, like writing content for websites that give fake reviews about products so that they get referral commissions. I think you'll see a lot of you'll see a lot of that usage.
Yeah.
But also I think you'll see some people take it and really drive it. Like really train an AI on a specific domain topic that most people spend money on, like legal help and HR stuff. And, you pick one of those relative categories that cost you every time you pick up the phone and call your lawyer, it costs you, $1,100. All of a sudden, if you can replace that in a small sense, like obviously not entirely, but just if you need something quick and you can replace it for like $30 a month, like why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. There was, I think, a lot of startups. I think that's true and like cataclysmic for a couple of companies where I'd spoken with a couple of people who were doing some kind of an AI based startup that was basically just a chat GPT wrapper with a different training set like woven into it.
Sure.
And like, oh, that's a bad day.
Gone.
That's a bad day for those companies.
Yeah.
You just got. Like, oof. Because those just got really easy to make. Like GPT wrappers are no longer a thing you can monetize in the same way. There will definitely be a market for it. Some people will get very rich, but I can go to venture capitalists and raise $50 million for my AI company. I don't think that's going to work the same way today that it did yesterday.
You are completely out of the Microsoft world, right? You're entirely Mac.
I am. Yes, I am not. I don't currently own any Windows devices.
Yeah, so I have a few, and I've gotten the new preview release of Windows 11. I feel like this just touches into this, and it's got their AI built into it now. So you get this. Why can I not remember what it's called? Copilot. So you essentially have ChatGPT woven into Edge and the OS at a base level, so you can just ask it all kinds of things. So this is going to be interesting.
How do you find it? Because I've heard mixed results about the first gen of it.
Yeah.
Is that like, wow, what a brilliant idea, executed at about 20% operating like potential.
That's pretty much how I find it. Let's just say that I hid it away and put it away pretty quick. But the idea is that eventually it will be very functional, and that's it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting little revolution we go through here as we figure out the uses for these things, as well as figure out how to best implement them into our life and into our existing processes.
Sure.
Like I will say, if you do go on social media, the amount of obviously AI generated images I now see is crazy. Like you can miss fingers or like the spelling's wrong on a t-shirt or something. Like you can just tell that they're AI generated, but like every piece of, every garbage marketing post you see or like memes, tons of them are AI generated now. So just like saving so much time in generation and artistic design, I guess. People are not doing them anymore. They're just getting them generated. So
yeah, we mentioned earlier that we were on vacation kind of recently, and partway through the trip, a little like background game emerged, which is the photo in that giant billboard or sign or whatever we're looking at of real people. As we were in like Mexico City, big dense city, tons of outdoor advertising, a lot, dude. Like I was pretty bowled over once I started trying to pay attention to it. Of like, no, that doesn't look real.
That was generated.
That person's too, like that. The way that they've all sort of, because so many of the images in the training sets are of models, their understanding of what humanity looks like is far too pretty. Like everyone has the cheekbone structure and just like that squint, the model squint. It's kind of uncanny. And then you start really paying attention to it. You start to see it everywhere. And it's like, well, it makes sense, that eyeglass store would have hired models. So the fact that GPT produced humans that look like models is okay. But why does the guy's squinty eyes have so many wrinkles around them that are like looping all the way back around the eyeball into the forehead? Like weird stuff that doesn't actually happen. And I guess that we're probably only a generation of AI away from that not really being I think it's going to become increasingly less recognizable. But this is this sweet spot where there's all these like cursed computer ghost humans peppering our like out of home advertising ecosystem. It's great. It's a good time.
Well, I don't even think it's just an advertising. Like the whole the demise of body image is upon us. But you know, what started with Snapchat filters and Instagram filters is now AI makeovers. So you upload your photos to these things, and these AIs
Totally.
essentially make you perfect. And then it's like, then you just use that as your profile photo, and it's like that is not what you look like.
The new Pixel phone. There's like a lot of great discussion about like what is a photo, but
Yeah.
the new Google Pixel phone really like poured a lot of kerosene on that discussion with the inclusion of AI. They're increasingly adding AI photo editing features into the Photos app, which is one step away from being added to the shutter button, where when you press the button, you're capturing something based on what really happened, but all of that face smoothing and, you know, the subtle aesthetic tweaks are moving increasingly like it used to be. You would take a photo, you would export it out of the Photos app into the editing app. Now it's moved out of the editing app into the Photos app. It will inevitably move into the shutter button itself,
Yeah.
where you're never really capturing, you're never opening a sensor, capturing light and closing it. You're kind of just gathering information with which to synthesize a really nice looking image. And that's like a really big, meaningful shift in like what it means to take a photo. Because for most people, they just want a good photo of their family. And if everyone's been like, had Vaseline smeared over the lens by an artificial intelligence to make sure that they're looking at the camera and they're smiling and you can see their teeth and there's the right number of them. For most people, that's a cool thing, but it is weird and it is different.
Just like whitens the teeth, straightens them,
Totally.
replaces the
Totally.
eyes, smooths
Yeah.
any of the wrinkles, removes any of the it's like it adds makeup, just color neutralizes and balances you, takes any sheen away, maybe does your hair for you. And you're
Yeah,
just like,
Graham's posture wasn't so good in the one image when everyone was looking at the camera, so let's just straighten her up a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, you want that glint in your eye. You want to have like, yeah, you want to look a little mischievous. You just pull that slider up, and like, who am I to judge? We've been editing in Photoshop for years, but
Totally.
we've been editing photos versus capturing versus creating AI based images based on something that really happened.
Yeah. On
Like,
likenesses.
exactly.
Yeah.
It like, does it matter? Maybe not, but also, yeah, it feels like it kind of does. It's a fascinating one.
Maybe I'm too old, but I like humans to be humans.
Yeah, I think keep it out of the shutter button, I'd say, is my big red line in the sand. People will want to be able to edit their photos and they'll want to be able to use all the AI editing tools. That's fine. But make it so that when I take a photograph, it opens the sensor, captures the image, and then closes the sensor. Whatever happens after that is between you and God. But like, let that part of it still function that way, hopefully forever. And I think that seems like an okay balance to me.
Yeah, the thing for me is just like, you know, social media has already proven to have a pretty negative impact on people's mental health. And as
Really?
it's a shocker, I know.
I had no idea.
But as we get further and further away from reality, like our body dysmorphia and like like we're not just catfishing others. Eventually, we're going to be catfishing ourselves. People will see themselves, and we're going to need to add AIs into mirrors.
We're gonna have to add it to mirrors. I saw where you were going with that.
So that people can see their perception of themselves, not the reality. And it's like, at what point are we going to define that as a mental health problem? You know, like, it's like we can't convince ourselves. I don't know, well, maybe we can, but we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't convince ourselves that we aren't actually who we really are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That first time you see the selfie cam not flipped in reverse. You know what I mean? Where like where Zoom reverses you so that it doesn't break your brain, and then you see yourself just filmed and you're the wrong direction
yeah,
from what you're used to.
Yeah.
Just the sort of like baby version of that. Why don't we move on to something somehow less dystopian than that?
deal.
A vast international spyware network.
Sure.
Predator Files. So Amnesty International, a couple weeks ago, we never got a chance to talk about this, published this really incredible investigation into this series of spyware attacks using a piece of spyware called Predator that had targeted not government people, not just government folks, members of civil society, journalists, politicians, and academics throughout the European Union, the United States, and Asia. There's a couple of really interesting things to this story that are why I wanted to talk about it. So, the story concerns something called the Intellexa Alliance. All of the names here are ominous. Try and keep track. They're the Europe-based developer of Predator and a series of other surveillance-based derivatives of this piece of spyware that have, according to, I'm just going to borrow the quote from Agnes Calamard, Secretary General at Amnesty International, have done, quote, nothing to limit who is able to use the spyware and for what purpose. The report published October 9th by Amnesty International Security Lab outlined how it targeted, though not necessarily infected, members of U.S. Congress, President of the European Parliament Roberta Metsola, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, and German Ambassador to the U.S. Emily Haber. Is a much longer list. Big fancy people all targeted through this. The investigation done in partnership with the European Investigative Collaborations and backed in depth by additional reporting by Mediapart and Der Spiegel, dug into the mechanics of how Predator works. It is a 0-day based, highly invasive spyware that gives access to the device's microphone, camera, all of its stored local data, contacts, messages, photos, videos, and the user will be unaware that it has been infiltrated by this. Between February and June of 2023. Yeah, it's good stuff. Amnesty International said that social media platforms were being used to publicly target 50 accounts belonging to 27 individuals and 23 institutions. Essentially, this is just a click on a link piece of spyware.
Sure.
So these were very public, appeals to people to try and click on a link that would have infected their devices with this Predator spyware as part of a campaign called Reply Spy. Part of the reason I was intrigued by this is that Europe is governed by a series of regulations that are meant to prevent Europe-based and regulated companies like the Intellexa Alliance, which is this network of companies all based and regulated in Europe, from producing products like this and then selling them to countries that they have good reason to believe will use them to target citizens, journalists, and political dissidents. There is supposed to be a regulatory framework in Europe preventing the use and development of these tools by those types of people. And I think this is a really important story because it reveals that there is a large Europe-based international conglomerate that is manufacturing these products and selling them to regimes all over the world with seemingly zero friction from that regulatory framework. I just found it very interesting. It's a long read. It's not a light one, but it is worth looking at.
It's I don't know. It feels similar to DDoS as a service and stuff, and this is just spyware as a service. Private company that makes these things. There's a lot of companies that make stuff like this and then license it to governments, and whether you like it or not depends on where your political allegiances lie.
For sure.
So it's the world we live in,
It is. And I feel like I haven't heard a lot of conversation about, this is it's a product. It's manufactured in one place and it's exported in other places. And yet it's one that has legal implications that are a little bit different than, I make a chair and I sell it overseas. It's a chair that can be used to spy on a political dissident or a journalist. And like you said, where your politics fall probably dictates whether or not you think that's a good or bad thing. But it probably shouldn't, because as much as you might be okay with a certain group of people being targeted by these things, there's probably some group of people you think shouldn't be targeted by these tools. And as long as they can be sold as liberally as a chair, you're never going to be able to make sure that that's the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that the big shift is that I think back in the if we look at this through the lens of history, when a nation state or something, a 3-letter agency decided that they needed to track and focus on somebody, there's regulatory involvement, legislative and judicial involvement. You needed warrants.
It's supposed to be,
all this stuff. And now this, there was always private investigators, so companies could kind of do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like in the digital age, it's like,
Yeah.
that's kind of the mirror of this is like three-letter agencies and nation states are still using software like this. They might not be buying this piece, but they might have other pieces.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you've got other bodies that would typically go to like the entire domain of private investigation needs to be largely digital now. If I had to meet with a PI that didn't know anything about digital stuff, I would be like, absolutely not,
No.
So it's
what does that guy even do? He's like,
Yeah.
I go through garbage. I just look at trash.
I follow people around. They're on their phones lots. I don't know what they're doing on them. But
Wonder
on
what
their
they're
phones.
doing.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like obviously not great. Don't love it. Don't love violations of people's privacy. But it doesn't surprise me. Let's just say that it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I sense that you are. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, bad, but we knew. I feel like we kind of knew about this, and it's not. It isn't surprising.
Yeah.
Which is itself surprising. Like it's. Is it though? Yeah, it is. You bring up a really interesting point that at a certain scale, nation states probably don't need to. The sufficiently large actors don't really need to license these tools because they're developing their own.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to go to someone that found the 0 days because they have their own 0 days. But there's this sort of like middle band of regimes and governments and actors who don't have those things, but do have the resources to try and deploy a tool like this. They can't make it, but they can use it. And the market has just sort of like, self-selected for that. Cool. So we'll make that. You're big enough to buy it, but you're not big enough to manufacture it. We'll manufacture it for you.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can make their own space rockets, but a lot of people want to go to space. So someone will make it.
Exactly.
It's like anything. Yeah. I'm reminded of that Crypto AG story, the Swiss company coming out of World War II that was manufacturing encryption devices for all of these different countries on either side of the Iron Curtain for decades. And then decades and decades later, it turned out that the CIA had secretly bought a share in the company and was installing backdoors into the encryption devices the entire time. And when I read something like this, and this very insidiously named Intellexa Alliance producing this predator spyware, God, the names.
Yeah, the names.
You do wonder, you're like, in like a decade, who are we going to find out own this? Like, that's the question I have. It's like, who's really behind this? The like tinfoil hat part of me starts to raise its hand.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing surprises me. Not much surprises me anymore these days, especially when it comes to this stuff. I find like the spouseware, I find that segment more disturbing. Maybe because it's more personal than something like this. This just seems like a corporate service offered to large entities and governments to do what they were going to do anyway. So it's just
totally.
This is capitalism,
Yeah.
This is supply for the demand.
Well, I mean, that's a good way of putting it. It was bound to turn into something like this, where if a 0 day is as valuable as we all understand it, a vulnerability that the manufacturer of a device we all carry doesn't even know about is worth that much, it would make sense that an ecosystem of businesses, suppliers, and buyers would naturally start to grow like moss around that incredibly high value thing. Mm-hmm. That's just what happens when those emerge. So I think you're right that it sort of feels inevitable in a way that spouseware and stalkerware, I guess, are inevitable in a different way, that when you zoom in close enough, humans tend to do icky things to one another and find technology to empower them. But that feels like a different.
I feel like you don't even have to zoom in that close. I feel like it's a pretty macro thing that we're taking part in.
That's true. That is true.
So,
well, that's Amnesty International's Predator Files. Give it a look. Look it up. It is a really fascinating read. It's a long PDF they've put out, but it's I think it's important. It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we take?
Where do we want to go next?
A break, or should we just keep going?
I love taking breaks.
Let's take an ad break. Advertisements. Listen to our voice saying things that people ask us to after the beep.
And we're back.
We are back.
Where do we want to go now? Do we want to go to the video game cheating corner, or do we want to dive into the crypto pit?
No,
what are we thinking?
Let's leave I feel like we had such a heavy intro piece, like the pieces. They were pretty socially and ethically heavy. I think we go
some of them, yep,
to the video game cheating because it's more insane, and then let's go back to crypto, which is inevitably morally heavy.
Morally heavy, but honestly, I think it's kind of a good news story today. Well, we'll get to that. Yes. This is a fascinating one. You flagged that a member of our Discord found this story. I'm really excited to talk about this. You want to lay it down for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So Void in our Discord brought the story forward. I dropped a few questions at him. We had a little lengthy chat about it one night, and it was, I'm shocked. Let's just say that. So Roblox, video game, obviously.
That can't be how we say it this whole time.
Roblox. I don't even know how you say it. Roblox?
No one's ever heard it said out loud, actually, weirdly enough. I say Roblox as in robot.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I didn't want to just say Roblox later like I was passive aggressively correcting you. So we had to get in front of it.
So I have been saying Roblox forever because I think it sounds funnier, even though I think are more funny. I think deep down I know that that's not it.
Yeah, sure.
But I've been saying it for so long that it's now in my lexicon.
It's now in your lexicon.
So for the sake of this episode, I will say Roblox. Just.
I hope I'm right, but yeah. Okay.
Roblox. I don't know.
Sound like an asshole if it's pronounced Roblox.
Roblox. Anyway, okay, so Roblox has just signed a partnership to reduce the amount of cheating going on in the Roblox environment.
Oh, thank God.
With the company that makes the cheat, the biggest known cheat, Synapse. So they have, and when Void initially threw the story out, I was like, where's the proof that this is the company that makes the cheat? Like, I see them talking, but no, they never directly mention that Synapse is the cheat maker. To which he replied with a developer link from the dev forum for Roblox, where they essentially go on to say, we understand how strange this might be, but this is for the best. So they have the biggest cheat manufacturer for the game has just been hired to prevent cheating in the game. It just feels like a shakedown that I've never seen before.
Shakedown. Yeah, the developer post that you mentioned has some really great stuff in it, and it kind of really does speak. It reads like that scene in a movie where the person answers the door and there's a cop talking to them, and they have this conversation, and it gets sinister partway through when you realize that the kidnapper is standing just outside of you, pointing a gun at the person talking's back. A very like blink if you're okay type of situation. To read from user BitDancer Roblox staff on this developer forum, as made clear that we said at RDC 2023, cheating and exploiting are not welcome on our platform, and we are using every measure within our power to combat it. The start of the next paragraph. To take another step towards this goal, we are pleased and excited to share that we have entered into a close partnership with Synapse Softworks, LLC. Synapse is well known in the reverse engineering scene, which is a very polite euphemism for they're one of the single largest cheating actors that exists on our platform, and we have hired them in order to stop people from cheating on our platform. It's it's the end of Catch Me If You Can.
It's the end of Catch Me If You Can. I have to read the beginning of the next paragraph in this post because it's actually my favorite set of sentences.
Oh yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
It might seem strange that we're teaming up with Synapse, but we believe it will be the most fruitful option when it comes to reinforcing the platform's security. For the longest time, we've been on opposite sides of the battlefield. But in that time, we've grown to respect their skills, and they've grown to respect our vision. Oh my God. It's like, for the longest...
Our vision of making this end. Please make it end.
For the longest time, we've been trying to shut them down, and we've grown to respect how good they are at getting around our anti-cheat, and so therefore they've grown to respect our vision of giving them money to stop creating cheats, is what I feel like that says. Allegedly, what
Yeah.
that says.
I'm so tired of this fly that's been buzzing around my face. I've decided to offer it equity in my face. I've decided to pay off the fly.
Yeah, I've just given it a
Honestly, like what this, I have to think that there was a countdown, like a security update countdown of like, they did this, so now we're going to try and do this. And then you release that update, and then they find another way around it. And at a certain point, you would say, if this happens 7 more times, where we put out a patch and then they get around the patch, we're just buying them. And it went 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Fuck it, we're buying Synapse.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I feel like this was something that someone knew was coming, and then, October 27th, we got to just drop the update. It's happening.
But to me, it's literally negotiating with terrorists. The if this becomes like Activision,
Policy.
like if you parallel this to like what's going on with like Activision engine owning, big Call of Duty cheat manufacturer, they're like locked up in court, they're suing each other, but engine owning is still releasing cheats and still kind of causing damage to the Call of Duty environment, but like they're like trying to destroy Activision is trying to destroy engine owning, which is like, what you would kind of expect, you know, where Roblox is taking the opposite initiative where they're saying, you know what, we're just going to give them a bunch of money. And granted, I'm sure they're going to deliver some services and be like, hey, this is how we always get around your anti-cheats, and here's some things we can do to tighten up where some of the information goes and how you can secure it against modification, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure they'll get value out of it, which is good, but I'm sure most of the engineers that work on Roblox knew a good chunk of it anyway. So I feel like you're just setting and paving a path for like hey, you want to get rich, Jordan? It's like, let's just build a cheat for a major free-to-play video game until the developer comes along with a check and says how much for you guys to piss off. And it's like, I feel like that becomes their biggest problem, is they might have taken out one problem, but they might have created hundreds more, especially because the people that play Roblox, the developers and content creators in it, are used to creating things for money, and they've all developed significant technical skills. All it's going to take is like 50 of them to be like, what's better than making $100,000 making these things inside of this platform is just hack the platform and wait for the millions to show up.
Totally.
And it's like,
yeah, it feels like you've kind of hired a really good blue team at a certain point, where it was like, for years we've waited for you to post an update and then we reverse engineer it and create exploits for it. Now, while you're working on it, we can be doing that process of reverse engineering and figure out how people will crack it so that you can hopefully ship it without that vulnerability. Like, you almost want to keep these folks in like a separate building off to the side, and they just get like an early alpha of everything. And it's like, your job, just keep doing what you were doing. We don't want to see you. We don't want to hear you. We'll see you in the cafeteria, and we won't make eye contact, and your whole job is just to fuck up our shit before someone else has the chance to. Honestly, pretty good idea.
Patch the code and send the patch over to the master branch, please.
Exactly.
But even then, I feel like they've created a new financially rewarding ecosystem. It's like, why would I build content in the game when I can just try and hack the game and then wait for them to buy me too? And I don't know.
It feels like a more extreme version of a bug bounty almost, where it's just like, yeah, you could crack us and try and sell it, but if you don't want to break the law, maybe you crack us and then sell it to us. It's like kind of that a little, but it is different. It's different. It's great. I love it. It's very funny.
Let's talk about bug bounties quick, because I'm always surprised when companies don't have bug bounties. And B, I'm generally surprised at how little the rewards are for some of them.
Sure.
Like there's some critical systems out there that even if they do have a bug bounty, the bug bounty is like $4,000. And it's like, okay, it's like, really? Like
It's not enough. Yeah,
if I get a 0 day into your infrastructure platform or whatever it is, it could
sure.
cost millions and millions and millions of dollars in losses and lawsuits, and you're gonna give me $4,000. That's like I don't know. This is just a total digression, but I'm always kind of generally surprised at the level that bug bounties rewards are for critical things. Some have big ones for like
Some of
million
them are
dollars.
big.
Like I
Yeah,
think Tesla notoriously used to have a pretty massive one.
right.
If you could
I mean, that's
hack the
good.
car, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So
You want that. Yeah, you want a big bounty on something, on a thing that drives. Yeah, that's true. Every so often you see one, and you're like, that doesn't seem worth A, the effort, and B, the damage. Like,
uh-huh.
huh.
So shall
Well,
we? Shall we?
inevitably, yeah. Let's take it to the crypto corner, the crypto pit. Let's talk about crypto, but fun one. Maybe not fun. A lot of people lost a lot of money.
Yeah,
A
yeah, definitely
cathartic
not fun.
moment in the world of cryptocurrency. Sam Bankman-Fried, co-founder of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX, found guilty on charges fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Verdict following a month-long trial in New York, where Bankman-Fried faced accusations of orchestrating one of the largest financial frauds in history. Uh, we've been following the story for a while. A lot of people have been following this story.
Mm-hmm.
We've never done the big deep dive episode, the big interview, because it's the story is just being so thoroughly told so well by so many different people. And that's kind of one of the important things about it, I think, is that this was one of the first large crypto scam, grift, crime, whatever you want to call it, that got really, really mainstream attention. And it kind of finally came to a head.
They paid for mainstream attention. You know, their name on F1 cars, their
They sure
name on
did.
stadiums, their
Yeah.
Larry
Super
David,
Bowl
and
ads, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Crypto's the new wheel.
you
Yeah.
got the world's best quarterback out there pounding the pavement for you. You've got, they definitely didn't hide away from the limelight. So I think
No, they
the
did not.
all that did was amplify the collapse.
Yes.
So
So a little over a year, a little less than a year ago, FTX, cryptocurrency exchange, sort of the darling of the crypto world, collapsed. And the very broad, we can now kind of say this, users tried to collectively withdraw billions of dollars from FTX, and they were unable to do so. And as it was kind of soon after revealed that the money from FTX had ended up over in the coffers of a supposed to be independent, but unfortunately woven together company called Alameda Research, which was Bankman-Fried's training firm, that had made these enormous bets on various parts of the crypto ecosystem, some of which were owned by Bankman-Fried and FTX itself. So when the story broke in this, I think it was a CoinDesk report making these early allegations, there was, naturally a run on FTX. The idea that FTX might not have their money made everyone take out their money, which meant suddenly FTX didn't have any money. It was revealed over the course of the trial, primarily by this one of the sort of two to three other major players in this drama. FTX co-founder and executive Gary Wang testified that from FTX's inception in 2019, customers' funds had pretty much the entire time always been flowing between FTX and into the bank accounts owned by Alameda, which was then able to sort of do whatever they wanted to with those user funds. A really important revelation. And this is really the story of Sam Bankman-Fried's like kind of main compatriots at Alameda and FTX, people that had been with him since the beginning, turning on him over the course of this trial. This was a sort of I don't know if I want to call it a story of betrayal, because I don't have a ton of sympathy for the betrayed, but really it was people turning against one another,
yeah,
under the threat of a massive legal repercussion. But one of the big, really interesting moments that we learned about over the course of this trial was that Gary Wang had hard-coded an exception, this really important exception into FTX that made it so that Alameda Research was the only user on the exchange that was allowed to have a negative balance, which functionally meant they were able to borrow from customer funds. this sort of negative balance exception turned out to be the thing that the whole collapse turned on. And a major part of this trial was Wang's allegations that Bankman-Fried directed him explicitly to create that exception to allow Alameda to borrow basically unlimited money from FTX, which is what resulted in the whole thing collapsing.
You know, I just gotta jump in. I gotta take another victory lap because I think I even said this when we initially talked about this. I said, I bet what they did is they allowed them to never be margin called. They allowed them to bypass the margin call safety limits. And that's
I do kind of remember you talking about that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what
another laugh around the track. Kudos. It would seem you called it.
One of the things that I did find really interesting about this, if you did pay close attention to the trial, is they started releasing all of the private kind of like DM groups, like text message groups,
some good stuff
WhatsApp groups that had a bunch of the key players, including SPF's dad, who I think, and this is, I've seen some coverage of this coming out of it, that I think he might be in some trouble. At least that's what I've read a few things talking about it. Like his involvement with it was not as, innocent.
Oh, arm's length as originally
suspected. So I think there could be some knock on. At least what I've read, a few opinion pieces, there could be some knock on lawsuits and civil suits and things like that coming down the pipe, which I think is to be expected given the size of the fraud. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, there's inevitably going to be a round of appeals. I'm sure that this story isn't actually done, and all these people are going to continue to exist, as we should talk about in a second. But it does feel like a little bit of a chapter closing.
Totally.
It felt like there was this group of people who were running this ecosystem of companies, spending lavish sums of other people's money, and it all collapsed. And the result of that was that they turned on each other. It was an architected turning on each other. I'm sure it was, again, under the immense weight of legal fallout. But they all turned on each other, and they all started attacking each other. And the result was that Sam Bankman-Fried, while he has plans to appeal, has been charged with 2 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, and is staring down the barrel of a lengthy prison sentence. That sentencing is set to conclude on March 28th. So we'll probably do a minor check back on what happened, but that's not really the interesting part to me.
110 years is what his maximum sentence is, or something like that. I read.
That's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. I doubt it'll be that, but who knows?
No, I'm not sure that. I honestly don't. I'm not even sure that it should be. I think the important part, I'm not sure what the important part is. It's an extreme waste of a bunch of capital and time and human utility. It's a big, dumb, shitty, bad thing.
Which I cannot wait to
glad he didn't get away with it.
In Michael Lewis's new book, Going Infinite, which I've just started.
Interesting.
I am a big Michael Lewis fan, as somebody who enjoys economics and finance as well as good story. Michael Lewis generally delivers on that. If you don't know who he is, wrote The Big Short, and a bunch of other great books. I've read them all, and this is his newest one. It just came out. It's about Sam Bankman-Fried. Can't wait to read it, and would love to have him on the podcast. So just need to find out how to get a hold of him. But I feel like would be a great chat.
I'm curious how, I know a lot of that book was written, I'm not sure when it was, but I think it was a while ago. Like, I think it was written maybe prior to the collapse of FTX or during the early days of it. So I'm really curious to read. He's both such a like hawkish critic of structural abuse, but also loves a good character. Like, and I could see it going either way. Like, does he fall in love with the character of SBF, or is he taken aback by the scale of fraud and blah, 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 everything we've been talking about? Like, I could imagine a Michael Lewis book that goes one of 2 directions about Sam Bankman-Fried, and I'm really curious which direction it goes. I'm stoked to hear what you think about it, and I'd love to read it and talk about it with him on the show.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I remember in some of the group text messages that came public through the trial, Michael Lewis was like in the Bahamas to interview Sam
Oh,
when it blew
interesting.
up. If I could be making that up, but I feel like I did
I
read
might have to
that.
read this. Yeah, I think I might have to read this.
So,
Access journalism is so interesting. I
mhm.
The idea of it's something I'd love to get to do, and you just have to find the right subject. But to really just be like, no, I'm going to spend 3 weeks with you. I'm going to spend a month with you, and we're going to
Woohoo.
document everything, and we're going to create something that's really
Cool.
like
Unique.
not rooted in like the hour or two that you sat down for an interview. And you and I have done so many interviews like that. They're
Woohoo.
great. But the idea of just embedding with a person to try and tell their story, so compelling and such a massive threat to your ability to be honest and objective and neutral about what's going on. Because you're like, this is
Totally.
my roommate. Like I hang out with them all day. Like
Yeah.
it's such a fascinating thing. I'm excited to read that book, and I'm excited for the end, for now, of the saga of Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, and the Bahamas-based financial nuclear bomb.
To speak of how it's not ending, maybe we should chat about how a few of the former FTX executives, fresh off the stands of
So sick.
testifying at the trial, are creating their own um, crypto
What could go
exchange.
wrong?
What could go wrong? Here's the best part. They are putting it in Dubai, which, as we've covered previously on the show, is and this is not any indication of whether this is trustworthy or not. I'm just stating it as a fact that Dubai houses most of the scams and multi-level marketing scams that exist in the world. A lot of them are headquartered out of Dubai. And this new exchange, which is titled Trek
Trek
Labs. Trek
Labs.
Labs is also founded and headquartered out of Dubai. So I think, not. I don't know if it's the
Yeah.
greatest look coming from the
Correlation,
fact.
not causation.
Yeah.
And yet, yeah, two former colleagues of Sam Bankman-Fried are now starting a crypto exchange days after he was found guilty on 7 charges of fraud,
Yeah.
which is a wild look. Wait a month.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you're up to anything fishy. That's not fair. You're allowed to have another job.
Totally.
You're allowed to start new
Totally.
businesses. 100% with you on that. There's no indication that any of these people had anything to do with anything. All of the benefits of doubts being given from a purely optics and marketing perspective. Give it a fortnight. Give it a little bit before you send out the press release saying that you are starting this cryptocurrency exchange that had previously received funding from FTX's venture arm. Like, it's just not a good look.
Yeah. I feel, but yeah, I guess it's to be expected. People were involved. They saw the success. They saw how to replicate the success. They saw what worked. They have that knowledge, that domain knowledge.
Yeah.
You have to expect that they're going to take it and go with it. I assume they probably won't do the whole Alameda, piece of it. But I think being a large crypto exchange is a very viable business, I believe, at this point. So it is as expected. It's a interesting knock on. And yes, I do agree that maybe waiting until at least the sentencing is over would have been maybe beneficial to the look, to the optics.
A generous read of this could be that they know explicitly how not to commit a very specific set of crimes. Like they're like, I'm articulating that as a joke, but there's a like an actual thing there of like, we know what it looks like when you have corruption inside one of these organizations. We know what it looks like when one hand is like talking to the other behind its back. Like we know what that looks like. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We've seen the pitfalls. Like maybe that's it. Maybe we all had this experience. We saw the good that can be done according to them, but we also saw the pitfalls. Now watch us do all of the good and make all the money without stepping in the pitfalls.
Yeah, they also saw what brought it down and saw what was used as evidence to ruin them. So.
Yeah, totally. Seeing what not to do and seeing how not to get caught are very distinct things. They're really importantly different than each other.
Man. I think just to kind of wrap up the Bitcoin stuff, I think we got an NFT thing to chat about, but there's been a lot of speculation. I don't know if you follow the crypto market, but the crypto market's been very volatile, typically in an up trajectory the last couple months or last month.
Yep.
And a lot of it has to do with the the potential approval and launch of a bunch of ETFs, exchange traded funds, that will kind of spot price crypto into real regulated securities markets, which is, to me, I can't fathom how either. I know right now it's in front of the UK Securities and Exchange Commission, their SEC, as well as the American one, but I can't fathom how they'll approve these things, as it essentially will. It's a tacit acceptance that they are securities and always have been securities, but will not regulate the actual internal security, like the Bitcoin itself, but it will allow us to create securities around those unregulated securities.
Yeah.
So
it's a weird. It would be a strange step towards the legitimization of cryptocurrency. It's already very legitimate right now. Hundreds of billions of dollars, Super Bowl ads. But from a purely financial perspective, it's a really big step to say that this is just a security now. For anyone that doesn't know, an ETF, I think a lot of people listening to this would, but an ETF is just essentially a pooled investment that holds a bunch of other assets instead of just one. So you're not just buying one stock, you're buying a thing that's got a bunch of other stuff inside of it. It doesn't have to be just stocks, but you're buying a basket. I think, is that a fair way of describing an ETF for a person that's unfamiliar?
Yeah, it holds a bunch of typically an exchange traded fund will hold like an S&P 500 ETF will hold a percentage weighted of all of the things that make up the SPF 500 basket. Crypto, like if they do a Bitcoin ETF, it will just strictly hold Bitcoin. So it will only probably own one asset class inside of it, or one asset inside of it. Oh, but the issue, well, there could be a crypto ETF that holds a basket of different cryptos.
Like, why wouldn't you just have the full crypto ETF that's like the S&P 500 of crypto? It's got Ethereum, it's got Bitcoin, it's got Solana, like it's just got all of them in it.
But the thing that blows me away is just that it's like, largely the crypto community, since I've been witnessing it. So I don't know what that would be, 2009 and onwards, 10 onwards. Like, I'm making these dates up at the top of my head, but they have not wanted to regulate. They enjoy the fact that they're outside of the regulations. Sure. From a hyper speculative standpoint, where there's no regulations, so they can be crazy and they can do massive leveraged investments and, to the moon.
To the moon.
But also on the other side, they don't really pay
philosophical perspective.
Yeah, philosophically, they're kind of anti massive big government finance regulation, etc. The regulatory people have let them live and exist in this like gray area, I would say, because it's not like they don't treat it as a security. The more and more, like, the SEC is getting involved in crypto stuff, but they're still unregulated. So they've kind of let them exist in this gray area for so long. And now letting them create ETFs full of this asset that they don't regulate just seems, I just can't see how they're going to do it. Like, there's a lot of speculation that they're going to approve these ETFs, but I just can't, for the life of me, see how they're going to allow it.
Yeah. You've been following the regulatory response to cryptocurrency for a while, and that's been something you've been talking about kind of prior to even me realizing that was an interesting element of the story of cryptocurrency. And that's definitely a huge part of this. Like, will a crypto-based ETF ever get approved, and what does it say about institutional finance's relationship with crypto is like a big important. That's kind of what this is really about. The second thing it's about that I find interesting and have wondered about for a long time with crypto is that I was introduced to crypto as a bold, defiant, libertarian, oppositional idea to traditional finance.
Yes.
Traditional finance is this big corrupt thing, and it's dealing in commodities. They're being produced by central banks and blah, blah, blah. Like that. Crypto is supposed to exist across a big raging river from that whole world of traditional finance. And it was supposed to be empowering to people, not your keys, not your crypto. But here's this thing. It's the digital version of a duffel bag full of gold buried in the backyard. And to suddenly say, but you know what's even better than a duffel bag full of gold? If we put that duffel bag in a bank and bought stocks in the bank and then put those bank stocks together and made an ETF out of it. Like, so that wasn't about that for some of you. It was about the line going up. It was about a world where the value of a bunch of other things had already gone up before you'd gotten it. But here's a new thing that you can ride to riches. It wasn't about the philosophical stuff. It was just about that line. And an ETF would mean more people could buy that asset, making your line go up further. Like, it, to me, this feels like kind of saying the quiet part out loud a little bit.
Totally. That's exactly it.
I don't know.
The second it goes ETF, it can attract, institutional grade investors,
totally.
like
pensions.
Could you imagine a pension fund dipping? It's like something like the S&P 500.
Yes, yeah.
When a company gets rolled into the S&P 500, usually their stock goes up quite a bit because all of a sudden these ETFs need to acquire, millions of shares in it because they're holding a basket of equities made up of the members of the S&P 500. So same thing will happen here, is that if these become real ETFs, the more people that buy them, the more Bitcoin will need to be secured and held by the ETF, and it will cause the line to go up. But here's the thing, is like Bitcoin, should I just say, has no utility? Is that too far?
You said it before. I don't know why you'd waffle suddenly at the finish line.
Say that it's utility versus
dubious.
Many other ways that we can trade in fiat currencies and utility in society. It's offers very little utility to the world. The fact that it needs to be held in an ETF as an unregulated asset, it just blows. I just can't fathom an SEC that allows this to happen.
I'll be curious. You'll have to keep us, I feel like you're tuned into this regulatory response to crypto stories. So you're going to have to keep us posted on if one of these things exists and whose pension suddenly is going towards it. It's so bleak. It's so goddamn bleak. But it's not bleak, and we should end on.
Yes.
I think we can put a pin in it with this one. This is just a little one. It's petty alarm bell warning. At a large Bored Ape NFT event in Hong Kong last Saturday, attendees had their eyeballs burned when ultraviolet lights typically used for tanning were used as part of a on-screen display. I'm not happy those people got hurt. That part's not funny.
No.
That part isn't funny. But some part of it's, I'm not sure which part of it's funny, but I'm laughing because NFTs gave people snow blindness. Tell me that's not fucking funny. Like, it just is.
I think that the fact that Bored Ape Yacht Club managed to still have a conference in today, like, I'm not sure what's going on with NFT values. I'm sure it's largely manufactured by people just refusing to sell, but I'm not sure what that conference is. Is it just a party? Like, I've seen people walking around with like Bored Ape Yacht Club's hoodies and stuff on. Is it just a brand now? I feel like it is.
Yeah, I think it was a speculative commodity that's value was based on a story about how valuable the brand is going to be, and now the value of the commodity crashed, and all that's left is the brand and some people kind of holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of putting it, like, I think people still own them. And I think people are still excited about it. And honestly, like, if its value isn't up and it's just a media IP play of like people being like, we like these apes and making cartoons and comic books about them, I don't begrudge that even a little. It's the second they all assemble and say this is going to be worth more than Disney because X, Y, and I'm like, this is just self-delusion. And I'm not happy that you gave your eyes a sunburn staring at the apes writ large 300 feet tall in front of you. I'm just saying it's quite the fucking picture. It's quite the scene.
Did you have to own an ape to go to this conference?
That's a great question. I wonder. Ape Fest, a 3-day annual meetup of people who own Bored Ape NFTs and which still sell for tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Oh, amid the 2021 NFT craze. Got it. Yeah, I don't know. I think you had to own a Bored Ape NFT.
I feel like that's just like if I was a grifter, I feel like that's the conference I want to go to. Like, I feel like a room full of people that paid $75,000 for an image that was digitally generated of a monkey.
Yeah, it would certainly be
those are
what would you call that? A high influence group?
hot leads for a grifter.
Hot leads. It's probably a sick event. It's in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
I'll give them credit. The graphic design on the website is pretty. It's pretty banging. It looks good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a metaphor, and I haven't taken the time because I just got back from vacation of articulating exactly how that metaphor works. But staring into a glowing symbol that inadvertently hurts you, there's something to that. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. Okay. FTX, Roblox, European spyware, human AI pin, Mission Impossible is influencing domestic policy.
Terminator.
We covered a lot.
We did. We got through a
Terminator. We got through a lot. I'm happy to be back.
Hopefully you guys made it this far. And
yeah.
If you didn't, totally understand.
If you didn't, I get it. Yeah, that's real. That's really valid. I think that's everything. I think that's another one in the bucket. I think we'll catch you in the next one.
Godspeed. I think I need to make Godspeed my sign off. Godspeed.
Yes, Godspeed. You said Godspeed. I was like, ooh, that's got a nice
Godspeed.
Godspeed. Safe travels. I could go with safe travels and you could do Godspeed. That's this really intense. Like, is something about to happen? Like, are we good? This podcast left me with an ominous taste in my mouth.